it's not necessarily a reaction video, but it is in reaction to just people saying different type of things that I feel are not necessarily correct about sci-fi, right? Or sci-fi comics and horror, because they're all interconnected, right? So, I'm pitching this, what is it? I got it right here. My Medea, right? Yeah, I go real deep, right? So I've been giving this out. It's fan fiction. And been talking to people about doing comic books. And, I usually react when people say, oh, I don't read sci-fi, or black people ain't into sci-fi. They can't really say that about horror anymore, but they really want to say it. I've heard Christians say, it's demonic and you're bringing out demons and all types of excuses and reasons for them to not be into sci-fi and horror. So recently I was talking to a friend of mine. Actually wasn't really talking to him. I was going back and forth in the DMs, and this is a big Hollywood person, or medium-sized Hollywood person, or probably big behind-the-scenes Hollywood person. And they were saying, black people don't read no comics. And, I ain't trying to do no comic book. And I actually believe that that's authentic, right? Although it's something that I disagree with, I do believe it's an authentic feeling, right? And I do believe that people feel that way. And it's sad because it's like one of my other friends said on Facebook, black people don't read, and I had to go through and I found statistics where black people are the second highest reading group in America, and we have a high reading level. But, I went through and I showed them that we had black bookstores, we had black publishing companies, we had genres and sections of books in Walmart and Barnes and Nobles. And, out of all the areas of diversity, we are one of the areas of diversity. It's not necessarily a Latino section as much as it is a Spanish-speaking section. So they're pretty much English books written in Spanish. So that's not the same as what we do with black books, because we have our own original stories that may not even be as appealing to white readers as they are to black readers. So we actually have our own audience, So somebody said the same thing about comic books. And, of course, all my friends that know me, they have already probably talked to me about it, or they agree with me, understand that there is a market. But there's a lot of people. I got close to 4,000 something friends on social media, the various platforms. I'm over 6,000, right? But so I don't know everybody, and everybody doesn't know me. So I'm DMing with somebody, and it's like, yo, we don't read comics. And I was like, do I have to go through the same thing again, where I show them the various comic book conventions? We have the Kim Fest in Newark, home state, New Jersey. My man Nasheed. We have Ekbok, which is like the original, and that just like only deals with comics. And they've been going for 15, 20 years strong. Then we have Onyx. We have Motor City up in Detroit. Andre Batts does his thing up there. And we have Joseph Wheeler in Atlanta. And, these are various comics. Then you have the Black Comics Day at the Schomburg, which is Martin Luther King weekend. Then there's, actually, I need to submit to see if I can get down now that I have comic books, right? And then there's also, the Black Sci-Fi Gathering in San Diego outside of Comic-Con. So those are just like live events, but we've got publishing companies, we've got awards, we've got infrastructure, right? And this infrastructure doesn't come from no fans, So that's reality. Not to mention, we've got black characters swooping into mainstream comics. So we had just talked about Far Sector, which is the Green Lantern comic book written by N.K. Jameson. All right, that just came out this week. We had David Weber's original story, A Bitterroot, which got snatched up to be a movie, right? And that's another original story. My man Rodney Barnes, he's always putting it out. He's got Philadelphia coming out later this month, so you can get your orders in now at your local comic book store. Philadelphia's coming. And then we have a bunch of independent creators. So those are like just the mainstream ones, but you know, black people been doing it. I mean, of course you could say, all right, white people's reading the Lando Calrissian comic and reading Falcon and the various other Luke Cage and Storm comic books that are out there, Wakanda and Black Panther, right? But even was a time when those characters didn't have comic books of their own, so people would say, oh, well, that's a black character. Ain't nobody going to read a black character's story. Well, now we can't say that because there's plenty of black characters with stories, and there's plenty of black stories that are being greenlit and with major distribution, right? So there's no excuse. We've got it on the mainstream. Now we've got it, we've been had it on the independent level. I just think, you know, there's still a big boom that should hit. I'm trying to be a part of it. I hit Tyler Perry's people up with the Medea comic, which I think is brilliant. I think that's really cool, and I think it can do well because there's every other brand except for the black brands are in comics, right? I think it's a beautiful thing for coming to America to do a comic book. You know, it don't have to be the main story. It's just in the universe. You know what I'm saying? I got a Coming to America story. I can keep up with the comedy, right? You know, I ain't Eddie Murphy, but hell, I can make you laugh. You know what I'm saying? And I think, you know, the level of comic book humor is never seen in Eddie Murphy level of comic book humor, right? Or Eddie Murphy level of humor. So the bar isn't that high. You just got to keep it, you know, make a little bit of laugh. You know what I'm saying? Make you chuckle, put them in a good experience, and keep it moving, you know? But it's not really only about that. It's about the story. It's about experiencing more of the whatever world universe is. Say, you know, it was, what's the one, Vampire in Brooklyn. That was a beautiful vampire universe. I would have loved to have written the backstory of the Vampire in Brooklyn vampire, right? Because he came through the Caribbean. You know, he washed up on the shores of New York in a coffin. So you know he had to be doing something, you know, while he was out there, vampire in the Caribbean. You know what I'm saying? Beautiful backstory. But the brand is strong enough to carry a title like that, you know, and Eddie wasn't hilarious in it. He played a serious character. So the comedy came from other characters, and it really wasn't a lot of comedy, and it wasn't high comedy. It was really about, you know, it was a dance between humor and horror, and it was a good dance. So I just think that that's really what needs to take place. I know we love to be hard on each other, you know, and say things, you know, things have to be rock solid proposals, but you know, no new market has a rock solid proposal. Venture capital, venture proposal. That's where you get your highest yields. So by the time, you know, comic books for black people is selling out, they're going to be expensive, and it's not going to be a high yielding market. It's going to be a low yielding market because you're going to have to pay market price. Right now, the market price is low, and the yield is going to be off the charts. So I just say that, and you know, I'm really hard on my illustrators because they are the ones that carry one of the pens. There's two pens in comics. There's the writing pen and the illustrating pen. You know, you can't do it really good without one or the other. I don't care how well you write. If your illustrations is trash or they're very beginner, then your story is going to suffer. It may do well, but it would have done a lot better with a better illustrator. And illustrators the same way. You can do the bangingest illustrations, but you only going to get your audience to keep up with you but so far. So your story has to be banging to keep up with your illustrations. And really, if you have high illustrations, you can do a medium story and it'll work. But at some point, we got to start pairing up together. And I say that because I run into a lot of illustrators that got good illustrations. Oh, you have a comic? Oh, well, I'm working on it, I haven't finished. That's because the story is stumping you, right? You can draw anything. You got the drawing down, but you stumped on the story. And guess what? You refuse to hire a writer to help you finish that story. You understand what I'm saying? We be hiring illustrators that don't have books to do their first book and they're getting paid. How about you hire a writer that never had a book before? I bet you won't do that. So at some point, we got to come together. I think that's one of the things that would kind of help the industry take it to the next level, is if we started working more together, illustrators and writers. I think we need to put it together. I think for illustrators, one of the other things I say is, if you haven't done a book sequentially, right, a sequential book, then charge an introductory price. You're up here charging $100 like everybody else, which is a good rate. If you can draw a page a day, that's $100 a day, or at your leisure time. But you up here charging $100 because everybody else says, art is subjective. So who says your art is not as good as the other person's art? And art aside, experience, right, makes even you better. Not only that, it shouldn't take you a year to do 24 pages. 20 pages shouldn't take you 6 months, right? Other than the fact that you don't have the time, but you're telling a writer, you got to wait a half a year for your book? Are you out of your mind? That's a lot, for $100 a page, which is a good day rate, half a day rate, whatever. It ain't 1/6 of a day rate, which is 6 months. Damn, So I think, we need to be realistic about that. I'm looking at $30, right? You want to come out the box? I'll put you down. You understand? Let me see how fast you work. Let me see how the quality of your work. Let me see how you adapt my story. I'm giving you words. I see how you adapt them into pictures. I don't care how much I describe it. I want to see how well of a sketch artist you can be. He had a round nose. He had beady eyes, brown hair, strong chin. Okay, well, that's all words. How do sketch artists adapt that? If I tell you, kicked them in the chest, flew across the room, knocked them down, how do you adapt that? What's your vision? How do you see that? I want to see how you see it. So, everybody, I don't know. I just think we need to work together. I don't have no problem. I don't think I'm robbing nobody, but I don't want to get robbed either. If I had illustrators tell me they couldn't finish one page, get the hell out of here. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of it requires us to work together to supply this demand, because at the end of the day, it goes back to my original comment on this thread. These people out here don't see us. There's a lot of black people, there's a lot of potential audience that I think is out there, in the sense that they would read if there was more available to us. And of course, we're all going to get better. Sure, I think there is quality in the independent world, because you have real experienced writers and people who have been doing their craft for a while, illustrators that just get better and better. But at the end of the day, I think the whole black comic book world, as a comic book world, is just going to get better. I think in the sense that we will have bigger brands that are going to come into it, and we're going to tell bigger stories. We're going to get, more bold in our story scope, right? I was reading Star Kid by, oh God, what's the one, Starboy, by Starboy, I think his name was, right? Starboy, the singer, he had a beautiful cyberpunk story, but he only did one issue. What the hell is that all about? Didn't finish the story. I was down for the ride. I don't know what happened, but so I don't know. All I can say is, yeah, we can improve, we can get better, and we will get there. And we are already a brand. We are already a genre. People making excuses are just potential audience for us. And that's it, yo. Talk to y'all later. Peace. Oh, if you like it, like and subscribe. I forgot what my calling was. I got to write it down. All right, y'all. Peace.